Okay, so the next boss is going to be Princess Huhuran. And again, we're just going to start out. Her chamber is, again, a very similar shape to that, where it's a big room. I think the exit to hers is over here. Actually, I'm pretty certain it is. Okay, the Princess Huhuran room. She is... We're going to give her the... No, that's too big. That's too big. She's not that big. She's not that big, okay? And again, this is not the scale, but it's more about the positioning and fundamental understanding of the mechanics. We're going to have Princess H. PH right there. Okay. Let me cover a couple of things about her before we go into the specifics of how you're going to approach, where you're going to position, those kind of things. She has a frenzy. The frenzy works like any other, trank shot rotation. You set up your hunters to make sure that they trank her whenever she frenzies. If she's frenzying and doesn't get tranked, she will start to poison volley, which she'll start shooting out, massive amounts of AoE poison. You don't want that to happen. That can kill you. She will do a noxious poison. No, is that it? Yeah, noxious poison. This is an important one for casters and healers, right? So again, I'm going to incorporate the explanation of this one with your entry, right? So your entry, and this is going to be from a healer caster perspective, right? Use the whole room. You have this entire space. Use the entire space, okay? So you're going to come in and you're going to put, healer, caster, healer, caster. You're going to make this circle around the room, right? And you want to be split up reasonably apart from each other. Think of it like Ragnaros, where he targets mana users to hit with the knockback. You don't want to be close to other people because you don't want to get knocked back. Well, what the ability does is it does it's 2,900 poison damage, and it silences you and nearby people. So if you were to say, like, okay, we're going to put the healers here, healer here, you're going to have a healer here, and then, you got maybe one or two over here, and then so all your healers are stacked right there, you're going to die. Like, they're going to get hit, and you're going to die. It's going to silence everyone and do a massive amount of damage to your healers, so you don't want to have that. You want to make sure people are spread out. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a circle per se, but spread out. You can have, maybe a multi-layer where you've got another healer back here and a caster here, caster over here. So you see you're kind of staggering your positioning, but stagger some of your position, spread yourselves out as you go in. So that doesn't happen and hit everybody at one time. If it hits a lot of casters or hits a lot of the healers at one time, you're not going to be able to do enough healing to keep people alive. The other thing too is you're gonna have a sleep. The sleep, which is a wyvern sting, right? And we're gonna position the main tank right here, and the off tank right here, and then you're gonna have DPS. I'm gonna say PDPS for physical DPS. Physical, let's get physical. You're gonna have the physical DPS back here. And then it looks like a really, really bad version of Mickey Mouse. But you can main tank, off tank. The reason being is the off tank then hopefully will not get slept. The main tank shouldn't get slept because they're separated. And the sleep could potentially affect these guys back here, but it hits up to 10 targets, right? And in a traditional fashion, you're going to use 2 tanks. There is another way we will discuss. How many push-ups do I owe you guys? Jeez almighty. It's like, I think I owe you 50 push-ups. You're going to have 2 tanks in a traditional way, and there's a way to do it with 1 tank, which we'll discuss a little bit later. So, the sleep. If players are slept, you do not want to remove the sleep because it will do 3,000 damage. 3,000 damage to the target that has been dispelled. So, if these guys are sleeping and you're like, dispel, you just did like 12,000 damage to your raid, which is counterproductive for, healing. You just want to let them sleep, And when that wears off, they'll get back in the fight and they'll do damage again. So spread out. Don't dispel the sleep. Now the portion that comes to whether you're going to use 2 tanks or 1 tank, right? There's a stacking debuff that gets put onto the main tank, which is, let me try to find a name because I want to call it the right thing. Acid Spit. Basically, it's a stackable debuff. It's called Acid Spit. No one cares what it's called. What you need to know is what it does. What it does is it does a debuff that stacks. It does 200 to 300-ish damage to the tank per stack every 2 seconds. So, the way this would work is the main tank starts out, he builds threat. When he gets about 5,000 threat on your threat meter, this guy's going to kick it up. And then he's going to just stay about 5 to 10,000 threat behind him, and he's going to try to stay that much ahead. It is very important for this fight to allow your tanks a sizable leeway of threat. All right, so we're gonna pull off. I'm gonna pull off this side here. I'm gonna race the exit hallway for a little bit here. I'm gonna demonstrate something on your threat meter, right? So I know you can't see this yet, but you're gonna have the main tank, off tank, DPS, DPS, DPS. Okay, this is again not the scale, but if you're looking at your threat meter. And the main tank is here. You know, he's got this much threat. And then the off tank is here. And he's got this much threat. The DPS want to be like half. You want to, not necessarily half, but you want to be way, 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 way below until the very end. Because you need to have this space right here. You need to be able to have that much threat space. You need to have enough space to just climb the threat meter and not worry about pulling aggro off the boss. Like, so you need to have some leeway there, so when it's time, you can unload and not worry about actually pulling the boss onto you. Okay, so you're gonna have this kind of setup. You're gonna go in, threat, 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 threat. He gets so many stacks on him, you stop. You stop doing threat. You say, okay, I'm at, say, just pick a number here. I'm going to say I'm at 75k, and he's at 65k threat, right? I'm going to stop. And then he's going to go until he gets enough threat above 75k to pull off of me, right? And then once he pulls off of me, I'm going to switch. So say he's at 85, I want to be at 80. I'm just going to start following along behind him. Okay? That way, if he gets too many stacks, he can stop and I can climb again and pass him and switch back to me. That way, that's how you switch back and forth because he's not tauntable. You need to have your second tank and your first tank very easily are very, very good at communicating, or they need to be able to speak to each other in an effective manner to let the other know how many stacks they have, how much threat they have, how much threat the other guy has, and then that comes with a little bit of tank synergy, knowing each other, knowing when to start, when to stop, that kind of thing, knowing how to manage that, not surpassing, pulling threat at the wrong time, causing extra problems. So, once you do that, you're just going to have the DPS, DPS, DPS. You get to 30%. 30% is a key part of this fight. And this is where the nature resistance matters. Now, when it does the poison bolt volley, which if it's frenzied, it will do that, or at 30%, it will do that. Princess will do that. It only hits 15. The 15 closest people are who get hit, which includes the main tank and the off tank. So you have the MT, off tank. So you're going to have 13 people, 13 DPS, which is going to consist of warriors, rogues, and potentially hunters, depending on how people have acquired nature resistance gear. You're gonna, I would say at least 150 to 200 unbuffed nature resistance for these people. Um, in addition to that, shaman are going to be putting down their totem for 60 NR. Hunters will be putting on their aura for 60 NR, which they don't stack with each other, but you're going to get that big bump in nature resistance right there. The other thing that's important too is all of these people need to have on their NR pots. All the melee need to have it. Even if you are not one of these 13 people that have it, we might even put in like 14 or 15 just in case. If someone dies, then you have a backup standing in there. So it hits the closest 15 people, and then if one of those people was to die, you want to have someone else that can resist a decent amount too. So don't worry about your damage. Don't worry about your crit, your hit, anything else. You literally are worrying about your NR. You put on the strongest NR pieces you have. If you have a good piece from killing the bosses or the world bosses, wear that. If you don't, wear something. So you want to shoot for 150 to 200 NR, and then you know, you're going to be the soakers. The soakers everybody talks about. When she hits 30%, that is where it is very important that you have left a threat gap between you and the tanks so that you are then able to unload. You're going to save all of your trinkets, all of your cooldowns, your power infusions, your arcane infusion, or whatever the mage thing is. Everything is going to be saved for 30%. When you hit that point, you unleash everything you possibly can as hard as you can and don't stop till she's dead. The idea is get her to 30% and then kill her as fast as possible. So there are a few things I was reading, and it was an old wiki that was saying that hunter pets and warlock pets do not count in consideration for this 15 right here. But I do know, and we don't know this because we haven't seen it on a PTR, but on the private servers, the Barvo Peasant Caller, and I believe like Target Dummies, and there was a few other things like the Hound Whistle and some stuff like that, would actually absorb the poison volley. Like it would hit them and they would die, but they would take the damage so it wasn't on players. So this is a traditional way of doing it. I'm gonna kind of like do a little zoom in here on the positioning if you're going to try to use one of these other methods, and it may work or it may not work. But this is how you would potentially do something utilizing that. Okay, so say this is the princess again. Princess Huhuran. And then you're going to have, again, if you've got your main tank here and your off tank here. Now, what happens is if you use the peasant caller, like the bosses, you know, you can move inside the image of the boss. You can move inside the graphical portion of the boss that you see, but the hitbox might be, that is not a good drawing on the hitbox. Let me redo the hitbox. Okay, so you're going to have the MT here. But the hitbox might be that big, right? So what you can do is you have your DPS. They stand right here. And if you use the dog whistles and the peasant collar and everything else, what are they going to do? So if you have, and I'm talking like if you have 20 people in the raid, 20 people in the raid pop the peasant collar, there's 3 peasants per person. So you're talking 60 targets to absorb poison damage from that alone. So that's at least 15, that's 4 volleys that are going to be completely eliminated simply because you use that, and then everyone has a nature protection potion. That's going to be 2 more. So you're talking like 6-8 volleys that are going to be eliminated right away. You're going to have a ton of poison volleys that are gone right out of the gate. So you have all that time taking almost no damage to burst her down. And if this works, all of those peasant callers, they're going to rush in to like here. and that puts them closer than the tank and the off tank, and it puts them closer than the DPS. So these guys, when they die, they die, they die, they die. Then it'll start hitting these guys, and your healers and your casters are still going to be out here, and it's going to be the tanks as well. So you're going to hit, you have this whole line of people, that, or a whole line of callers that are going to absorb the damage before it hits them. And it's about making sure you're at max hitbox. It's also important to make sure you're at the, you're not, yeah, you just, okay, I'm going on down a different tangent here. But that's how potentially it can work. So we have to wait and see if it's going to function that way or not. And I don't have any information to confirm whether it will or won't. So our strategy likely out of the gate would be, oh, you wouldn't have an off tank for this strategy. Will be to do the traditional method and see how it goes, and then we would try this another time. But you won't have an off tank on this because all of the DPS, if this works, all of your DPS are not wearing nature resist. They're wearing damage gear because they want to do more damage. So when you have all these guys in here taking the volleys for that, 10-15 seconds of survival time plus your potion, your greater nature protection potion, you can go ham in your damage gear and burst her down. And the way you do that is you kill quickly. You use one tank. That tank just goes ape shit. I mean, he just, mighty rage pot, boom, 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 boom. If the tank gets slept, you just take it off and you heal him. You just heal through the damage, and that's how it works. And then you get down to the end, and when you get to that 30%, regardless of whether this is something you're trying or you're doing it the traditional way, every single healer pop all of your trinkets. Use all of your, it doesn't matter if people are full life, you just spam, bam, 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 change target, heal. You heal as hard as you possibly can. Think of it as Veilstraz at the end. You heal like you're healing Veilstraz on this group of people and on the tank. You just heal as hard as you can. It doesn't matter if you're over healing or whatever, you just spam healing. Keep them alive until it's dead. Those are the ways, the traditional way and a potential way that we have yet to see if it's going to work or not. I'm very curious to find out if the callers work. And then I also wonder if they do work, are or is Blizzard going to try and nerf it? Say it's not intended to function that way. I have a suspicion that they may not work, but I also have a suspicion that the poison damage may be easier to heal through than people had previously thought. Again, it remains to be seen on the way it's going to work here for Classic.